The regulars will notice that this card review for Symbiote Spider-Man and Silver Sable is coming a little bit later than I typically do. I streamed like 50 hours this week for Twitch drops with Marvel Snap, which aren't quite over yet. I'll be live again on Monday if you haven't gotten those done and you want to pick up some free credits and a mystery variant. But that being said, I wanted to put some like level-headed energy out into the air as far as Symbiote Spider-Man is concerned, because there have been a number of people asking me for my thoughts, since there have been a lot of this card is absolutely cracked or it's busted and other typical YouTube sensationalist nonsense that in my opinion just really couldn't be further from the truth with this card. One thing I would like to point out when it comes to talking about new cards, even if you're looking to be data driven, is that the beginning of the Marvel Snap season is a very difficult time to be hyper data driven, because everybody's being dropped back into the 70s at the highest on the ladder. And something that's really important to understand about Marvel Snap is that the pre-infinite ladder has a ton of bots in it for a lot of players, especially the top players. What do bots mean for data? Well, it means that basically every single Marvel Snap card in the pre-infinite ladder has really good stats because the bot metrics are pumping it up. Let's compare our two latest card releases in Symbiote Spider-Man and Silver Sable. This is the numbers for Symbiote Spider-Man and Silver Sable for 70 through 99 on the ladder. These cards look absolutely cracked with these metrics. However, because I'm recording this review a little bit later, there are plenty of people into Infinite at this point, and if we look at some metrics with both of these cards, when we are able to look at data that has no bots in it, because there's no bots post-Infinite, their metrics look like this, which, as you can see, Silver Sable still looks like a very reasonable slash solid Marvel Snap card, but the story that Symbiote Spider-Man tells here is very, very different now. In my opinion, Symbiote Spider-Man feels like a C plus card at the absolute best. I think it does have a home in some niche decks like Phoenix Force that I covered in my best decks roundup on Friday, and it is a truly novel and unique effect that has a lot of interesting deck building considerations around it. That being said, it's also easily countered by some of the most commonly played cards in Marvel Snap right now. White Widows, Widow's Kiss, Kate Bishop's Acid Arrow, things like Debris, putting clutter on your board, all of these are heavily disruptive to Symbiote Spider-Man, and they're cards that people were already playing. So it's not like you even have to make a conscious deck building choice most of the time to be good against Symbiote Spider-Man. You just already have cards that are generically good in Marvel Snap in your deck that happen to just really mess up what he's bringing to the table. Silver Sable, on the other hand, has been a very good, very playable Marvel Snap card. She's basically exactly what I've expected her to be. She's likely one of the premier one energy cards in Marvel Snap right now. She provides a dash of disruption to one of your opponent's cards, while also providing a very competitive rate of 3 power with literally no drawback for just 1 energy. I mean, she's easily best in slot for a deck like Bounce, and realistically, you could play her in a bunch of decks in Marvel Snap and be pretty happy with the result. That being said, I don't think Silver Sable is going to be what I often call an archetype defining card. I think literally any deck that's playing Silver Sable can likely substitute her out for a different one energy card such as Iceman and have that deck still operate at nearly the same efficiency. This means if you're someone that has the other two cards in this week's Spotlight Cache, and Silver Sable would be the main draw, I think realistically you could skip this week and still have access to all of the same decks that you would have access to, even if you did have Silver Sable in your collection. Finally, I wanted to close this video out rambling a little bit about pre and post infinite data like I talked about with Silver Sable and Symbiote Spider-Man at the start of the video. Specifically, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in the Marvel Snap community as a whole with how people should be approaching parsing this data on public trackers like Untapped. To illustrate this point in a very specific manner, Living Tribunal is a deck list that regularly has very good stats stats on the pre-infinite ladder. This is in large part due to the fact that this deck leverages getting really high cube gains from AI opponents, because when you're losing 2 out of 3 lanes going into the last turn against AIs, they're more likely to stay, giving you that maximum 8 cubes or 4 cubes as a payout. In comparison, when we look at the same deck list with the post-infinite data we have for the season, you can see it paints the deck list in a very different light. It's genuinely just not very good. And I've seen this distinction lead to a lot of bad data and deck roundups in the community that I often get questions about on my own best decks video. Very specifically, Living Tribunal is a deck list that you'll almost never see me put in a first week of the format best decks roundup, because this discrepancy that I've highlighted here between the pre and post infinite numbers is something that's been happening almost every season in Marvel Snap since Living Tribunal released. While it's true that there have been a couple of brief snapshots in time where the metagame warped in a certain way that Living Tribunal's very linear game plan was genuinely good, those moments are few and far between, and more often than not, when this deck list has good stats pre-infinite, it's just because it's beating up AIs. As the classic saying goes, the 3 types of lies are lies, damned lies, and statistics, which is to say that a lot of the numbers that are used on the public trackers, while they are definitely true, they are what they are. Without appropriate interpretation of them, they can often lead you to bad conclusions. This is one of the reasons why in my own best decks roundups that I put out here almost weekly, you're never going to see me quote specific win rates, and when I talk about different play rates inside of these things, I'll say depending on how you slice the data quite frequently. This is because when I'm grouping decks by top performers or most popular things, I'm slicing the data on untapped, pre-infinite, post-infinite, top 50%, top 10%, and then I'm mixing in a little bit of my own anecdotal experience as well, playing in that format to kind of sculpt what is, in my opinion, most accurate for those categories based on a bunch of different data samples. I think looking at just one particular microcosm of any particular subset leaves out important bits, as such as like with the Living Tribunal deck list, where it looks really good in one set, when in reality, when you change one of those variables, i.e. removing bots, it becomes very apparent that the deck list is really not good. Any rate, thanks for making it through to the end of my ramble today. I assume this video is probably going to perform pretty poorly overall because it's both a later review of our 2 card releases, and I spent the back half talking about something mostly educational and less actionable for most people, which causes most folks to tune out. I appreciate all y'all that made it all the way through to the end of the video. Really consider snapping the like button if you made it this far to help give this video the boost that it's probably going to desperately need. If you enjoy this stuff as well and you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe as well. I post Marvel Snap content updates, different breakdowns and stuff here many times per week. I'd love to see you back again sometime.